Hey lovelies, it's Alexa with Blue Woods Design. I am so excited to be a part of this One Stencil 12 Ways YouTube hop. This was organized by Shawn Petite. We are using her stencil. It's her Fall Leaves and Masks stencil. And what's great about this YouTube hop is she is giving away a stencil of the winner's choice. And guess how many winners there are? One for every part of the hop. 12 winners. That's kind of amazing. So every stop, if you comment on that video, you are entered again to possibly win a stencil of your choosing. I'm super excited because the concept is that we all get the same stencil, these fall leaves stencils, and we don't know what we're all going to do, but we're all going to play with it and see what comes out of it. I started just by collaging down some papers. I know I want my leaves to be the bright pop of color, so I really kept it neutral. And now I'm rolling on some gesso with my brayer just to sort of push that a little bit to the back. And I'm also going to come in with my paintbrush. I am adding faces to this. So where I'm going to add the face, I'm adding just a smidge of gesso and smoothing it out a little bit just so I know that I have like a nice spot to work. So this is the fall leaves stencil that we're all going to use, and the masks. I am also using another of Shawn's amazing stencils, which is this face stencil. I love it, love it. Now you're going to see I'm going in with this like yellow oxide color. There's a reason for that. I wanted to show that you can get a stencil of a face and it's not always going to look the same. My girls end up looking totally different, even though, as you can see right here, I started with the exact same face stencil. So I'm going to show you how you alter that in a bit here. As I am sketching out my background, I'm just drawing in some spots where I can add some trees into the background, and I'm using a charcoal pencil. You could really use anything. I just grabbed whatever was right there because I am going to paint those in. So I did want to mention that all the people in this YouTube hop actually have been on or are currently on Shawn's design team. So it's super fun because some of us are from a couple years ago, even further back, and then there's some people who are on her design team just last year or whatever, but it's really fun. We all kind of feel connected, I think, once you've worked with Shawn. She's amazing, and we all are like, jump at the opportunity to do something with her. So when she had this idea, we all kind of were like, yeah, let's do it. Sounds like fun. So I am grabbing my watercolors and watercoloring in some trees in the background. Now, I did not prep this in a way that would be right for watercolors. I am not following the rules here. So I put down my collage with gel matte medium, and then I put gesso down, right? So my surface is not made for watercolor. I don't care. It doesn't stop me. So I really wanted it to be like that watered down, softer look. So I grabbed my watercolors and I just used a few different kinds of browns, and I just did lines and lines and lines. I didn't want it to be a super obvious, like, oh, that's a birch tree or that's an oak tree, because I was going to use all different kinds of leaves. So I really just wanted it to be interpretive and a little more loose and easy, and also like super easy. Anyone can do this. I just painted a bunch of lines. It's nothing too crazy or complex, but the end result actually really feels like they're in this forest. I will say, if you're going to do this, I use just like one of my water brushes that I'm totally fine with, like messing up. I'm sure there are people in the watercolor world just rolling over like, are you kidding me? That's not what you do. All right, well, let's get into how we alter this face. So the biggest thing is I am using her stencil as a guide. And that is something Shawn says all the time. Use your stencil as your guide. And as you can see, I have her eyes, both girls' eyes, in the same spot as Shawn's were. I'm basically using her stencil to give me my lines of my face. So as opposed to measuring out where the eye would fall, how wide they're going to be, I'm just using the width of the eyes that she has, but I'm changing the shape a little bit. The first girl I did a more rounded. The second one, I had more of a straight inner eye. And the same thing, like the nostrils, I altered those. One is more rounded, one is more straight. And same with the lips. One has more of a divot in the middle and one has less of one. I drew that out with Stabilo, and then I went over it with a mixed media pen. I believe that was my Jane Davenport pen, but it's just to sort of seal in a bulk of the Stabilo. But as you'll see, I'm grabbing a little bit of the Stabilo that's exposed and creating a little bit of shadow. And I am doing them in 2 different skin tones just to show you that you can. And again, this watercolor is not meant to really sit on this surface. So you're just playing and figuring it out, and it does not need to be perfect. I'm obviously going for a very painterly look, and you can do that with your watercolors and your Stabilo here. So as you can see, I also altered, you can almost see that old line of the neck there, right? And I know I'm going to give them hair and stuff, so that's all going to get covered up. But I like to give them a little bit thinner of necks. So I basically used her stencil and created these totally different looking girls, right? Like they don't look alike at all, but they started out with the exact same layout. And by that, I mean, your stencil is basically taking the work out of doing your grid lines, right? Like, so I could go through and show you divide in half this way, and then again and again, and here's where your nose line is and all that. But when you do a stencil, you basically, or even a stamp, like if you have a face stamp, you can put that down with really light ink, and you're just going to use like the outside corner of the eye and the inside corner of the eye. How you connect them is where you change it up, right? So you could make a very rounded eye, or you could make one that's really almost more sleek and narrow. Same thing with the nose, right? You have your 2 nostrils and the little swoop. Now, how far that goes down, the little swoop in the middle, or how rounded the outside of the nostril is, all of that changes your look. But having that initial spot already marked for you gives you a great starting point. And again, same with the lips and then your face shape as well. You can see the girl on the left, I gave her more of an angular cheek there than this girl on the right. And now I'm going in and filling in with paint pens and stuff, just giving all those little final details, which really start to bring them to life. And I like using paint pens for this, but you could really use acrylic paint, whatever you like. The whites of the eyes and kind of those little highlights, I really do think a paint pen is awesome for it. But again, if you don't have a paint pen, grab some white acrylic and a really fine tip brush and have at it. Now, you can see I did their hair with multiple colors. So the girl on the right, she's like a blonde-ish. But I also used definitely some brown in there just to give some depth and dimension. So one of the things with hair is the more you can add the layers of color, the more realistic it will start to look. And the girl on the left, she's got dark hair, but I also added in a tiny bit of this, I think it's quinacridone magenta in there, but it's, you know, like this reddish pinkish color. And so now time to give them their leaf crowns, which I'm so excited about because now they become like the fall goddesses that they are. Now, I have all different kinds of paints, and some of them are more opaque than others. Some of them are a little more transparent than others. So my answer to that is that I take this Titan Buff, and I happen to have a DecoArt Americana Premium one, but really it's just taking a white of any sort or like a buff color like this. And I put that through the stencil first, and I don't move the stencil, and then I put my color on top. So what that really does, and particularly I did it because of the girl with the dark hair, because most of my colors, like a yellow, is not going to show up over that dark hair. But when I lay down that Titan Buff, it totally works. The other thing I am doing is, you can see I am drying, or at least hitting it with a heat tool. I'm putting the paint down pretty thin, so by the time I'm done with the second girl, usually that first girl's leaves that I just did are pretty dry. But I make sure to set them, because the only thing you want to be careful of is when you're laying down all these different colors and leaves, if any gets on the back side of your stencil and then you lay it across her face, you could get like a big red spot on her face or something like that. If that happens, just grab a baby wipe and gently pull away that color that might have gotten where you didn't want it. And no problem there, because I definitely know that happened to me. As I know not to do it, it totally still happens. But baby wipes are your friends for that reason. All right, so now I am bringing in my super soft charcoal pencil and doing some shading, adding a little bit of dimension. Oh, look, there's a little hand. My daughter, whenever I'm doing art, always seems to find her way over to me and starts arting along with me. Yeah, so you'll notice her little artwork over there on the left. But anyway, just shading these, letting them pop from the background a bit, particularly those ones that are kind of floating down. I wanted it to look like they were floating down from the trees and just sort of creating this gorgeous look. And I think it kind of bridges from one side to the other. I'm going around the outside here with a Marabou art crayon. They are my favorite, particularly for doing edges like this, because they are so smushy and awesome and just like perfect for, put it down, you can smush it with your finger. You don't need to grab like water to activate it. It just smushes perfectly, and it kind of frames out your piece really nicely. And I then grabbed some paint pens. This one is a gold paint pen. It is my favorite, and I want to get the name right, so I will put it down in the description box, but it is like my all-time favorite gold pen. It is super shimmery and like perfect gorgeousness. I also added some orange. I have this like sparkly orange paint pen and some red. I will say, I think paint pens are a really great investment. Obviously, like a black and a white. But then the more you get, just like, look how it sets it off, these extra little touches. And there's my girls, you guys. Make sure you hop on over to the next stop and enter your comments so you can win. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys soon.